So this is my first recording session of 2024, take 2. And I say take 2 because I was so close to finishing because I was interrupted, but that's not going to deter me because it's now time to get back to the actual episode, and it's the episode that is truly marking the beginning of the end of Friendship is Magic. Anyways, this is the Summer Sun Setback. So this episode begins in the Legion of Doom Chasm as Cozy Glow asks Grogar what he's up to.
Since you three were unable to retrieve my bewitching bell, we need another source of great magical power to defeat Twilight and her friends.
He's gone!
This would have been the actual reaction if Grogar heard that.
I heard that.
Yeah, that would have been Grogar's reaction, but we don't get that because he just disappears. So anyways, we see that Tira, Chrysalis, and Cozy Glow basically talk and say that they don't really trust Grogar.
None of us do. Which is why double-crossing him with his own bell will be so satisfying.
So essentially, they want to basically use the bewitching bell to double-cross Grogar, but our three villains don't really know how to work it.
Twilight Sparkle may be the worst, but she does know stuff. She once said the archives in Canterlot have the restricted area.
And before anybody asks, I'm not going to complain about that plot hole of how Cozy Glow knows that. I would like to counter-argument that Cozy Glow was in the Friendship School for months, and she had plenty of time to learn that information. Not everything has to be explained in the show. We can only assume that through a large amount of passage of time that Cozy Glow learned this information. And we also get this nice bit of meta humor from Tyrek.
Celestia and Luna love to hoard information for themselves. If there's an answer, it's there.
Yeah, because as everybody knows, Celestia and Luna have a history of basically being, well, cryptic. So the villains decide to basically essentially go on their own villain road trip to Canterlot, as after the theme we cut to Celestia and Luna checking in on Twilight for the setup of the Summer Sun celebration, and surprisingly, everything is completely organized, and we don't have any overreacting pre-planning freak-out.
Calmer than we would have expected. No complaints here. With the exception of the odd trivia night, I've made a lot of progress since the royal swanifying ceremony. You may not know this about me, but I occasionally freak out.
Well, Twilight, we have known this about you for the last 9 seasons, and I think everybody is prone to freaking out at something like this.
And that was a joke. I wanted to show you with the Summer Sun celebration how much I've improved. So I focused on delegating and trusting others. It's been great.
AKA, I just learned what servants are! So essentially we then get this oddly very morbid and kind of depressing conversation as Celestia and Luna want to talk to Twilight about the Summer Sun celebration.
That's actually what we came to talk to you about. This may be the last Summer Sun celebration you'll need to plan. Did I do something wrong? Of course not. It's just that the celebration has always been about us. My defeat of Luna, and thanks to you and your friends, my reunion with my sister. Now that we're leaving, we don't see a need for the holiday any longer. Now that you're... My sister and I have decided the time for us to retire is upon us. You and your friends have proven you are ready to lead Equestria.
So yeah, this rather prolific talk basically signifies it's truly the beginning of the end, as Celestia and Luna are pretty much about to retire, and they feel that Twilight and her friends are ready to lead the next generation of Equestria. Now, it really goes to show that because we're nearing the end, the torch is starting to be passed on. So Twilight basically tells the main 6 what they're going to do, as basically they're given the dial from basically between dark and dawn, as the rest of the main 6 check in to see how Twilight is handling all this.
You feeling about all this? Something like this could definitely send you into full freaky-outy mode. I'm actually fine, but if this is going to be the last Summer Sun celebration, I want to make sure it's the best celebration ever. Please don't give it more work. Please don't give it more work. Please don't give it more work. So even though everything was done, I thought of a few last-minute changes I could use your help with. Ah! I knew it!
suddenly changes to a celebration? That sounds positively chaotic.
What are you doing here?
I've known Celestia and Luna longer than any of you. I terrorized them. They turned me into stone. If this is the last Summer Sun situation, I simply can't miss it. Well, I see I've arrived just in time for the Twilight gives her friends an impossibly long and overly detailed list.
And it turns out Twilight doesn't do that. She instead gives the main six and Spike really cards of listing what they have to do.
No more freaking out. With your help, I know we've got it.
Oh, character growth is so boring.
And I gotta admit, the meta humor in this episode is really on point. So when Discord teleports away basically the rest of the main six to get their task done, we then see our basically pony version of Team Rocket basically arrive in Canada as we get another humorous meta humor.
The sun holiday. How many holidays do you ponies have?
The fandom has been wondering that for years, Chrysalis, and I think at this point we practically lost count.
No matter. Getting into the castle won't be a problem.
Are you sure about that?
So yeah, this is also another positive I'll give about this episode, is that one of the great things about this episode and why it's great at continuing the overarching story is the great callbacks. Because so far, this episode basically gives callbacks to Sparkle 7, Frenemies, he's between Dark and Dawn, and surprisingly a trivial problem. Basically with the first two, seeing basically how our three villains have gone out of their trial stage from Frenemies, and basically now have to go up against the beefed up security from Sparkle 7. We especially see this when Chrysalis tries to get inside, but she's unable to do so because she isn't aware about the star keys to open up the gates.
Right, of course. Do yours get glitchy too? More medallions, more problems, am I right?
And if there's one thing that I continuously don't understand, is how increasingly incompetent the Royal Guards are. They should have realized for 1 second that if she can't get her key to basically open the door, they should have realized something was wrong. I don't get it. So essentially the villains have to realize now that they essentially now have to come up with a new plan to get inside since they beefed up security.
And I fought.
Could you not go popping us all over the place, please?
So while Twilight basically delegates her friends to do all their respective tasks, and Discord also got his own card, which basically don't do Discordy things, the villains have to come up with a new alternate plan to get inside the castle.
Increased security on a crowded holiday with Twilight and her friends bumbling around? This is impossible.
Oh no. This is perfect. We need a distraction, and those ridiculous ponies just gave it to us. Now, do exactly as I tell you.
Yeah, so we see that through this here, and we see how well Cozy Glow, Tyrek, and Chrysalis are now working together, since, as I said, they've now practically gone past the trial phase that they went through in Frenemies. We basically then, after the commercial break, we see basically the Appaloosa family coming over to help up with set up all the treats, where we see Braybird return. And we haven't seen him in a while.
It's gonna be easy, but I think we can whip up these new cookies Twilight wants before sunrise.
If any pony can handle some last-minute bacon, Braybird, it's y'all.
We brought money for the celebration. If she keeps testing, we might be in trouble.
But I'd be a suspicious looking cookie!
But then we see that Tyrek through the bushes ends up taking all the strength of the Earth ponies to make himself more powerful, and Braybird tries to figure out what's going on.
What is it?
And he goes out like a bitch.
Every pony, get away from the food till we figure out what's going on.
I guess really the one thing I do have a bit of a nitpick is that I kind of wish of what they did back in Twilight's Kingdom, where as we saw from the first time we meet Tyrek, when he absorbs some ponies' magic, their cutie mark also disappears. I kind of wish that they brought that back, and everybody just assumes that it's the food. And I want to argue about this, but I guess because that all the ponies still believe that Tyrek is still locked away in Tartarus, I guess they aren't really aware of that, so it makes sense why. They just don't think, wait, that seems familiar. It is nice to see Tyrek get his full bulky form back, and we even see him take a pie, because he's evil. So then we see the Pegasi trying to get the weather together, and after Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy leave, we basically see Cozy Glow come in and basically do her manipulation. And
Organized enough to handle the small stuff, so you can focus on the big picture.
The big? Yes!
And it kind of makes you wonder why none of the ponies in Caroline are like, wait, isn't that the girl that was locked away in Tartarus with Tyrek? Considering that practically every single pony knew about Cozy Glow's misdeeds.
Sounds right.
This kind of weather has to be handled jealously. Good thing I'm here. I'll take care of everything.
And it kind of makes you wonder why this pony isn't asking her like, hey, why are you smiling so villainy like that? Like, why are you smiling so evilly like that? We then see Rarity and Spike basically meet with the fireworks troupe for the special fireworks display.
What we do. These last-minute changes aren't too challenging, are they? Huh. The more challenging, the better.
And then after that, we see Chrysalis basically shapeshift, and we get some pretty strong manipulation from her.
Sorry.
Crackle that. And I don't want to join your silly little troop. Pardon me. I meant no offense. It just seems a pity for unicorns to waste their talents on something so inconsequential. Unicorns wield magic. We are the most powerful ponies in the land. Don't you ever feel you're destined for more than performance?
And I gotta admit, it seems that Cozy Glow must have rubbed off on Chrysalis because she basically was able to shapeshift, get into the unicorn's head, and basically are able to manipulate them to basically cause mass hysteria. It is deliciously evil, and I love it. So we do see from the rest of the main six that everything seems to be under control. Even Discord is actually behaving himself, as we see Celestia and Luna basically come in to ask Twilight to do some things.
Truly is amazing. Twilight, we know you had difficulties using the amulet to raise the sun and moon. We thought perhaps a practice session before the festivities might be in order. That's a good idea.
Yeah, especially given what we saw last time, it's probably more needed. But then as soon as Twilight leaves, basically the rest of the Aces come in, and I do have to nitpick at the fact that when Braveheart's the first to come in, Applejack doesn't realize how sunken in his eyes are, and she should have been the first to realize something is not right. But then as soon as Braveheart collapses, we see the other races are basically now causing mass hysteria.
Damn it! It's a disaster out there!
Rarity, please inform Her Highness that we will not be performing. This fireworks show is beneath us. We are better than that.
What the? Everything was fine a minute ago.
Apparently, a lot can change in a minute.
So yeah, with basically ponies now losing their physical magic, the weather being out of control, and basically the fireworks troop being on strike, naturally things are out of control. When Twilight tries to check in to see what's going on, her friends actually try to hide this sort of thing, and Applejack is kind of thinking what I'm thinking.
Last minute errands for you before sunrise. Well, that's a relief.
Explain to me why we didn't tell her the truth.
I agree, Applejack. That needs an explanation.
Well, Twilight is finally learning not to let her stress get the better of her. If she finds out everything went wrong, it could be devastating. Oh, she would be so upset. She'll totally freak out.
What do y'all suggest?
So, yeah. So, that is really a logical explanation, because basically with what we've seen in this episode, we now see how far Twilight has come, where she's able to handle herself, delegate, and not get so stressed out over everything as she did before. So this is really kind of a moral conundrum that her friends want to tell her the truth, but run the risk of breaking her confidence and then break her into that full twilighting panic mode. So the main six basically, well, they decide that they need a miracle in order to fix all this, as we see Discord.
I suppose I could fix everything. But isn't the real miracle here the miracle of teamwork and character growth?
I really like that. So they begin to get to work on basically trying to fix everything as the villains essentially revel in the chaos that they've created. With the cartoonish strike of lightning basically signifying all of this. So while Pinky and Applejack try to figure out what's going on with the Earth ponies, the villains really go off without a hitch as Cozy Glow is able to distract the guards, and Tarek absorbs his magic while Chrysalis gets the key, and they're able to get inside the castle without any issues. Meanwhile, Rainbow Dash and the Wonderbolts try to get at all the weather that's out of control because, well, basically, the Pegasus don't know what to do with themselves. We see the villains inside trying to look for the archives, but we do see that the geese, one of the rogue geese, actually sees what's going on and tries to go after them. Meanwhile, Starlight, Spike, and Rarity try to talk to the Firework Troupe to figure out why they're acting the way they are.
Putting on a silly little show for the other ponies.
But you were so excited before. What changed?
So we see the rogue geese trying to talk, and then we see the geese realize that it wasn't a false alarm, but... yeah. This is why the villains are so dangerous with the three of them working together. As despite them seeing the geese, one of the rogue geese come in, we see Chrysalis think about that, become a geese herself, make it seem like it was a false alarm, and they're able to get into the archives without any issues. It really goes to show how dangerous the three are when they work together. So essentially things basically kind of go completely out of control, as basically Applejack basically says what I'm feeling, right?
What's going on?
I told y'all this was a bad idea, but no pony ever listens to me!
I think that's probably Applejack's reaction with everybody in the fandom basically keep criticizing her being a background pony. So essentially Twilight gets the main six and Spike together to kind of ask them what exactly is going on here.
I thought everything was fine. What is going on?
Everything was going fine.
So it totally wasn't. We tried to fix it ourselves. Why didn't you tell me? We didn't want you to freak out. And you thought not telling me everything was a total disaster would avoid a freak out?
When you say it like that,
Sounds like a really bad plan.
Here it comes.
I know how I used to react, but I really have changed. Panicking won't solve anything.
And that highlights how far Twilight has come. She's used to prone to freaking out when something doesn't go right, but she's now learned to basically manage everything. It really goes to show the growth that she has gone through, now knowing what it's like to rule Equestria. And that essentially, she takes it as she comes, and she's able to get every single pony on board to get all the tasks done. And while that's going on, we see that the trio of villains head inside, believe it or not, the secret Star Scroll archive from It's About Time, as they're able to find the book that they need, and they succeed in getting it. We then basically see the celebration go off without a hitch, and through Luna and Celestia's basically guidance, Twilight is able to use the amulet to help them raise the sun and moon, as Twilight gives a very prolific speech.
Has always been a reminder not to fear the night, where there is always a new day to look forward to. But as we look towards Equestria's future, I am sad to say that today will be the last Summer Sun celebration. Because there is something even more important to celebrate. There are two ponies who have watched over us, night and day, for as long as we can remember. We will no longer commemorate their battle or their reunion. Instead, we will take this day to
Yeah. So, this is really starting to hit home because this really is the signifying of the passing of the torch, with Twilight basically announcing that with Celestia and Luna's retirement, they're renaming the holiday basically the celebration of the two sisters in their honor, signifying basically that passing of the torch to the next generations. And with that, we do end up with our moral of the episode.
You're not a princess. I'm just glad we pulled it off.
About that, we just wanted to say we're real sorry.
You did tell us you changed. As you said, we should have trusted you. Next time you say you're not going to freak out, we'll believe you. Good, because I'm sure there's going to be plenty of things I'll need my best friend's help with.
Now, this is still a really good moral because if you're really confident in your abilities, your friends should be able to have more confidence in yourself if you say that you got something. So, it's really nice to know because nobody was really out of character. They were just more concerned of what Twilight would do if something is, but they should have just taken her word for it and that she has changed. And this episode proved that she has grown from the ever so constant freakouts that she's had throughout the show. Also, that last line, Twilight, you're going to be in for a rough one because,
It really does seem like you just might be ready for whatever comes next, Your Majesty.
And that line has a lot of heavy foreshadowing. So we cut back to the villains, where Grogar essentially says that he's found an item that he can use to basically use the magic that he has, so he's going to be away for a while.
When I return, Equestria will finally be ours for the taking.
Oh, stop pouting.
You knew you couldn't stay that long. You had to return all the life force to those Earth ponies so Grogar doesn't suspect anything.
I don't have to like it.
Well, I don't like that we worked so hard to destroy their party and they still pulled it off. But you don't see me complaining.
Our goal wasn't to destroy, it was to distract.
Shit.
Yeah. That's why I haven't really criticized the villains' plans or even tried to talk about it, because the whole purpose of their plan, it wasn't basically to try to destroy the ponies on the spot. It was to distract them. And it worked. Basically, the mass chaos they were able to produce in so short a time and keep the ponies distracted, that was their whole purpose. And like I said, they succeeded. I think what this plan kind of reminds me of was all the little minor plans that the villain of Power Rangers SPD Grum did. Even though the Rangers were able to take down the monster of the day in most of the time, Grum's forces were able to basically take resources that they needed for a much larger plan. And usually, they worked. It's basically a setup like that, where if you cause confusion and chaos, you're ultimately the one that will win the battle. And seeing the villains be able to pull this off, kind of like what Grum did, being able to pull out multiple victories for much smaller schemes, Chrysalis, Tyrek, and Cozy Glow were able to do the same thing here. And like I said, the whole point of being a distraction and not destruction shows that they're now starting to bide their time and knowing when to pick their battles.
And now we have exactly what we need.
And no time to waste. We have to master the bell before Grogar returns.
We've managed to stay one step ahead of everybody so far.
You know, it really was super easy to get all those Earth ponies, Pegasi, and unicorns to turn on each other.
It was, wasn't it? Now that is something to think about.
It certainly is, Chrysalis. Too bad Generation 5 basically then did the same thing, and instead of 3 villains working together, it's basically an evil Karen with a racist son that actually does it. And I'll contemplate whether or not I'll review Generation 5, but as of right now, there's no way that I'm doing that. And it ends the episode just like that. And thus, that was the Summer Sun Setback. And, what was the moral of the Christmas tree again?
That you always win when you are good.
Yeah, well, this episode basically says, suck on that! I really like this episode. This episode kind of like a culmination of basically everything that we know about the overarching story, where it's essentially passing the torch over to the next generation. But both side stories of this episode work so well. We see how much more threatening the villains are since frenemies, that they've now learned to communicate better with one another to reach the common goal, and we see how dangerous they can be as a force. And by the end of the day, their scheme ends up working, and they're carefully biding their time, picking their battles. We also see the growth of Twilight as well, as we see her basically show her to become more and more of a confident leader, and she's not being so Twilighting when something doesn't go right. And we see the moral dilemma of her friends wanting to tell her what happened, but in fear of losing her confidence. And nobody was really out of character. And we then also see basically the torch of seeing Celestia and Luna announcing that they are going to retire, and then passing the torch on to Twilight and her friends. I think really if there was only one thing I could really nitpick about this episode, it's just the continuous proof of how extremely incompetent the Royal Guards are. Just the fact that they weren't able to pick up on those type of things, and that a rogue geese was kind of the first one to realize something wasn't right. But we see the villains counteract that, and that this whole episode just keeps you on your toes because you want to know what's going to happen. But yeah, I think really the only negative thing I will give this episode is just the fact that this episode just basically can continuously prove how incompetent the Royal Guards are. But other than that, this was a really solid episode that honestly kind of sets up what's going to be the climax of the season. And given how many episodes are left of the season, I think it's safe to say that we're nearly there. So the Summer Sun Setback to me, I think is a solid A episode. There's nothing else I can really say. I just really enjoyed the episode, and I kind of wish I was able to watch it all the way through, as this was the first episode of Season 9 that I didn't finish, as I did with the rest of the seasons. But since I'm now in 2024, hopefully this will be a wrap-up for, well, this season and the show by extension. So yeah, final ranking for the Summer Sun Setback is an A. Alright, so next time we are going to look at She Talks to Angel. See you guys next time. Bye.